Hello, I'm Karen Brinson Bell, Executive Director of the North Carolina State Board of Elections. I'm joined by Caitlin Love, our General Counsel. I want to first say good morning, everyone, and happy Election Day. About 2,660 polling places opened this morning across North Carolina and will remain open until 7:30 p.m. Voters in line at 7:30 p.m. will be able to cast their ballot. We encourage all registered voters who have not yet cast a ballot to go to their assigned polling place today and make their voices heard. North Carolinians turned out in record numbers during the early voting period. Even before today, 62% of registered voters had cast their ballots. That includes voters like Gertrude Stackhouse, who at 102 years old cast her first ballot in Cumberland County in this election. If she can do it at 102, so can you. Let's continue this incredible turnout today. We expect that the State Board will meet later today to consider possible voting extensions at a few polling places that opened late this morning for various reasons, including poll workers who arrived late. Details about this board meeting will be sent to the media as soon as possible. The extension of hours is not unusual in any election. Please remember that we have 2,660 polling places across the state. Minor issues are going to happen, and protocols are in place to address these circumstances as they arise to ensure all voters can cast their ballots successfully. State Board staff are working closely with the county boards of elections to ensure issues are addressed appropriately. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Our first question today is from Nikki Hauser with WITN TV.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Nikki.
All right. Hi, Kristen. So the state board said that after election night, the election is still far from over. That has always been the case. So I was just hoping to ask if you could break down what happens after election night. What are the things that you are doing until November 24th, where you say that you'll certify the election?
Yes, that's correct. The results are not official tonight. They are considered unofficial results, and we will go into what is called a canvass period beginning tomorrow. That is 10 days in North Carolina for the counties to conduct audits, including a sample hand-to-eye count for 2 randomly selected precincts. It's when we research provisional ballots. We will also be accepting and counting absentee ballots that were properly postmarked today but received after today. And so a series of steps are taken to certify the election and count those additional ballots. They will meet as county boards, which are made up of 5-member bipartisan boards from people in the community, and they will certify the election on November the 13th, and the state board will meet on November 24th, where we'll review the audit process with the state board as well.
Our next question is from Amanda Lamb with WRAL TV.
Yes, thank you. What are you guys doing in terms of concerns about voter intimidation and also unsolicited poll watchers? How do you convince voters that it is going to be secure and also protect them as they go out to exercise their rights today?
I think the reassurance for everyone should be that nearly 4.6 million ballots have already been cast by North Carolinians, and that has happened with very little to no incidents for most of the counties throughout the state. And it's been a smooth process. We have watched, we had some long lines the first few days of early voting. Those eased up, and we were able to have very smooth days of voting during that 17-day period. Very few reports of any issues with voter intimidation. And we are here to safeguard that. We work with our federal, state, and local partners. Law enforcement has been called in when necessary, but we have taken those measures this election and in elections before to ensure that any voter is able to cast their ballot, and this year to do so without fear of disease.
We have a follow-up from Amanda Lamb, WRAL.
Yes, thank you. One more question. I know you've partnered with a lot of agencies to secure the election and the election results, and this is, if I'm not incorrect, the first time you guys have chosen EOC as your location. Can you just talk about why those decisions were made?
This is not the first time we've chosen to be at the EOC. Traditionally, our cybersecurity partners that work out of the Emergency Operations Center have come to the State Board of Elections. They did so during the Super Tuesday primary in March. However, it was in March that we learned of the pandemic and coronavirus, and the State Board of Elections is not set up to accommodate for social distancing with all the State Board staff and the individuals who help us in monitoring for cybersecurity concerns. So in June, as we conducted the second primary and new election that were held in 18 counties across the state, we did locate here at the Emergency Operations Center in order to have proper social distancing for that election, and have chosen to do so as well for this election. It also just makes for easier operations if we can be at one or the other headquarters for monitoring for cybersecurity issues.
Next question is from Rusty Jacobs with WUNC.
Good morning, and thanks for all your hard work. My question is about the USDOJ. I read that its standard operating procedure for the Federal Justice Department to send monitors, but specifically this year, I was wondering if you could tell us specifically what you know about where they'll be in Wake County and what exactly they'll be doing. Will these DOJ monitors be inside the voting enclosure or outside? And I will have follow-up questions about your general concerns or whether these activities from the DOJ are welcome by state officials.
Well, thank you, Rusty. I can actually answer your follow-up question first. We do welcome this. This is standard procedure. We have had DOJ officials in North Carolina to monitor elections in years past, so this is not anything unexpected. In terms of what they'll be doing, they look for not only voter intimidation issues, but they also look for accessibility to ensure that we are complying with the Help America Vote Act and with the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. So there are many facets of what DOJ officials look for when they come to our sites.
We have a follow-up from Rusty Jacobs.
And yeah, thank you, Director Bell. Just one last question. Are they visible? Will they be easily identifiable to people? And again, whereas we've seen that in some cases, even law enforcement could be concerning or could raise anxiety among certain voters in the community. Any concern about, again, the federal presence, especially in light of comments from the White House raising concerns about voting in general. Again, will these federal representatives be easily identifiable, and are you concerned about how voters on an individual basis might respond to their presence?
While I've been in conversation or in communication with the DOJ, our general counsel is the primary point of contact, so I'm going to ask her to come up and address a little bit more information about the DOJ observers, monitors.
Hey, Rusty. So the USDOJ has been in communication with us at the State Board and the County Boards of Elections to let them know how this process works. They have informed us that their attorneys and other legal staff will be the ones doing the monitoring, so those individuals will be in regular plain clothes, and they also informed us that because of the pandemic, their monitoring will be limited to outside the voting enclosure, just to make sure everybody stays safe for this election.
question? So we have lost connection. We are in the process of correcting that.
Tanya Simpson from ABC News. Tanya Simpson.
Good morning. Happy Election Day, and thank you for taking questions today, Director Bell. I was just wondering if you could share with us which polling sites specifically opened late today and may have extended voting hours.
We have 4 that we will take before the state board at this point. 1 was in Guilford County, 1 in Cabarrus County, and then 2 in Sampson County at this point in time.
We have a follow-up from Tanya Simpson, ABC News.
And do you know how late those sites opened? I know that the general rule is that there's about a 15-minute period in which you all will consider that. So was it about 15 minutes or was it longer?
I believe most of them were within 15 to 30 minutes.
Our next question is from Pamela Kirkland with CNN.
Good morning. Thanks for doing the call. I know the county boards of election are the lead recruiters for poll workers, but the NTSB had helped bolster recruitment through that State Democracy Heroes campaign. Do you know what the status of staffing at the polls is right now? Are there any locations that have had to tap into reserve workers?
I don't know exactly. We did receive over 60,000 entry submissions for people who were interested in being a democracy hero when we were requesting or recognized that we would need 25 to 30,000 individuals. So it's my understanding that for what poll workers were needed, the counties were able to fill those positions, and we've had no indication that there's been any issue. So there were sufficient reserves as well.
Next question is from Scott Cohn with CNBC.
Scott, I'm unable to hear you.
I apologize. I was on mute. Thank you. There have been reports in other states of at least one of the campaigns contacting local boards of election, asking for specifics about how ballots are being transported, who's doing that sort of activity, and so on. And I'm wondering if there's been anything like that here in North Carolina, and what the state's response has been.
We have had some inquiries. I can't name for you at this point the specific campaigns or political parties, but that is something that we don't disclose, necessarily exactly who would be because of security concerns. But we do know who our poll workers are. We can provide those lists in certain situations. But the process of how we transport ballots and the process for chain of custody in North Carolina is well documented, and we have been able to provide those processes when requested.
Next question is from Rick Henderson with the Carolina Journal.
Good morning. I want to thank you for keeping a lot of the data updated on absentee ballots and early voting ballots cast, both and by mail ballots. And wondered if you're going to plan to continue to do what you started yesterday, and that is the outstanding absentee ballot tally. Are you going to continue to update that number during the day so that we know how many absentee ballots aren't accounted for at a given time, so we'll have a better idea when the polls close what's still out there?
Yes, we have been providing that data for many days now. I'm glad you have noticed that resource on our State Board of Elections website, ncsbe.gov. It's been one of our goals is to provide more data easily accessible to the public. In terms of the outstanding absentee ballots, we will continue to monitor that and provide that information. The county boards of elections will not be meeting as frequently necessarily as they have to consider absentee ballots, so some of that information may not move as quickly as what we've had during the absentee voting period. So just be mindful that we will continue to make our data available, but the circumstances may actually change a little bit after Election Day in terms of the frequency of when boards meet.
Next question is from Lecrae Mitchell with CBS News.
Hi, thanks so much for doing this call, Ms. Brinson Bell. I just want to know, is there a rough timeline of when we will start to get some of the results from tonight? I know that polls close and you all have already been tabulating, but can you just give a rough timeline of when we can start expecting to get some results of tonight's race?
Yes, so our goal is always to be able to release the results at the close of polls. That does not change, however, with the fact that we will be going before the state board with possible extension of some polling places. It has been general practice that we would not release the results until everyone has closed their election day polling places. So if we do extend hours, if that's the vote of the state board, then we do anticipate waiting until those polling places have closed. But that does mean that we will release all of our absentee by mail returns thus far, all of our in-person one-stop early voting results thus far, and that is approximately 4.6 million ballots that have been cast that we will be releasing that data at the close of polls, including the extension times.
The next question is from Charlie Innes with the News and Observer.
Hello, thank you. So I was just wondering, what have you heard about voter turnout so far at this point?
We've heard that things have been steady. We did have some people waiting in line this morning. Even when I turned on the news this morning, I saw some folks standing in line at 5 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. ready to vote when the polls open. We don't actually communicate with the counties directly to get a count of how many have been voting throughout the day, but we are hearing that things are steady. Because of how many people have voted early, we actually expect today to be pretty, just steady. We are expecting probably around 1 million people to vote today if the projection of turnout is where many of the statisticians and analysts have predicted. So it should be pretty smooth for voters, and they should not have particularly long lines or long waits.
Our next question is from Nick Oxner with WBTV.
Hey, good morning. We've gotten reports of some voters in Union County this morning who voted early, but whose ballots are not being shown as having returned or been cast. Is this a report you guys have seen widespread, or is this an isolated incident, and are you guys looking into it?
The county boards would be processing those. We do look into instances. It's not been really widespread, but obviously given that over 900,000 individuals cast absentee by mail ballots, over 3.8 3.6 or 3.8 cast absentee, or excuse me, one-stop early voting ballots. That's a lot to process, and so there are times when someone may not be correctly in our system, and that's part of why we also have provisional balloting available on Election Day.
And we have a follow-up from Nick Oxner, WDTV.
So just to clarify, it's possible that someone could have voted early, excuse me, in person early, but the system has not caught up to recording that they voted, even if it was in person early, not by absentee?
That would be very unusual, but if that is a circumstance, the counties do research that, and they do alert us if it's a situation of double voting so that our investigations division can determine if there's an issue.
Our next question is from Matt Vasilagambros with State Line.
Thank you very much. I was curious if you've heard any reports of mis or disinformation this morning spreading around, and if that had any impact on, voter confusion or going to incorrect polling places or, whatever other issues.
This morning, we have not had any reports of mis or disinformation that I'm aware of. So things have gone very smoothly, and we've had smooth sailing.
And our final question is from Travis Spain with WRAL.
Yeah, thank you. And if you don't mind, I'll ask two. One is, can you walk us a little bit through what voters will be asked to do if they have to cast a provisional ballot today? I know they're not going to be able to check on the status of that for 10 days, but do they need to come in and speak to people at the Board of Elections office after they vote? Will they be told specifically what steps they need to take? And then also, on absentee ballots getting their postmarks today and coming in late, are y'all planning to segregate those by date of arrival, particularly once we hit November 6th, or are we just so done with the courts that you don't feel the need to do that?
So let me start with the provisional ballot question, and then I'll come back to the absentee question. So provisional balloting, the way that process as a whole works is that an individual would show up at a polling place, and for some reason they are not correctly in the poll book. It might be that their name is misspelled, or there's a hyphen that wasn't in the system, or may be part of their name and in the system but was not the way that they checked in. Things happen. The same could be if someone, as one of the questions alluded to before, we often will see that a father and a son, or a junior and a senior, and perhaps it was misentered. So there could just be a conflict in the poll book. And that point, we provide the voter with a provisional ballot. They usually go over to the help station so that we don't delay the other voters who are in line, but we give them an opportunity to fill out information. This includes a voter registration form in case the issue is actually that the voter is not properly registered. This ensures that they do get registered. If there's other information where they indicate what might be the problem, perhaps they're at the wrong precinct, and so they would indicate that so that we can do that kind of research and determine whether the board is able to count that ballot or not. They are given a call-in sheet where they can check the status of their ballot as the County Board of Elections completes the research and the county boards meet to certify the election. In terms of the absentee question, Travis, will you state that one more time, please?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you're going to segregate ballots in some states. If it comes in after a certain date, but before the final date, they're going to say, all right, these came in by November 6th. These came in by November 12th in case there is further court action on that. And the question is whether or not y'all will do that.
So throughout this entire election and with any election, as the county boards receive absentee by mail envelopes or ballots in those envelopes, that is scanned into the State Election Information Management System, which we call SEAMS. So there is already a tracking of when we receive any absentee ballot. It does not necessarily have to even pertain to a court situation. That is a tracking process that we do. So the need to segregate is really already a process that's performed within our system. Yes. So that was our final question. Thank you again, and please, if you have not voted, please make sure that you do so by 7:30 p.m. tonight, or at least make sure that you are in line tonight at 7:30 p.m. when the polls close. Thank you, North Carolinians, for your confidence in our process. Thank you to our county boards of elections and to our poll workers today for being on the front lines and being our democracy heroes.
Wow, thank you very much. And hello, Goodyear. Hello, Phoenix. 6 days, can you believe this? 6 days from now, we are going to win Arizona, and we are going to win 4 more years in our great, beautiful White House. A vote for me is a vote for massive tax cuts, regulation cuts, fair trade, strong borders. Our Second Amendment, we will save our Second Amendment. And American energy independence. It's a vote to support our police, our military, stand up to China, which we've been doing. They gave $28 billion to our farmers. That's very nice. Thank you very much, China. And ensure more products that are proudly stamped with that beautiful phrase, made in the USA. We will deliver record prosperity, epic job growth, and a safe vaccine that eradicates the virus. The China plague is what it is, and quickly ends the pandemic. Normal life, which is what we want. We just want normal life, like we had 7 months ago. We'll fully resume, and next year we will be the greatest economic power. We are going to be stronger than we've ever been before, and you see that all happening. Next year will be the best economic year in our country's history, and last year was, and then we were interrupted. We were interrupted. It's called Make America Great Again, again. A vote for Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, is a vote for the biggest tax hike in history. I've never seen this before. A man is campaigning on the fact that he's going to raise your taxes. I haven't seen. They're going to crush regulations. It will be crushing. You have no idea what they want to do. We took off more regulations than any administration in the history of our country. They are going to put those regulations back, and all they do is cause waste and a lot of other problems. Slash Medicare and Social Security, and they want to abolish